Okay. Hi everyone. Ich kann auf Deutsch reden, aber ich rede nicht, weil if I explain this in German, you probably won't get it. It's not that good. So I think I'll go with the safe option of English. Um, I just played the video of my work, just an introduction of mine. I'm an architect by profession. I've studied for 5 years in India architecture, and then I've studied 2 years more masters here in Städelschule. And I have a background of both in my interest and also what I've studied as well. So this was a part of my master thesis, but I love it so much I can't let it go, so I have to keep talking about it. I'm going to explain why this is and what it is. I wanted to show you once just an introduction of what it is because you haven't seen the console outside yet. After the talk, maybe you guys could always have a try and see what it's like. But this is like a tiny introduction to what I did. If you can move back to the presentation. If you can move back to the presentation. So I call this little project of mine Real Frankfurt. Real Frankfurt. Real Frankfurt, because you'll see it's such a contradiction because with virtual reality, it's a huge topic of discussion, what's real and what's fake. So that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. Real Frankfurt describes how reality can be taken from its original context, tweaked, and presented in a newly constructed realm. Google Maps have an intentionality built into them. It is about intervening with the artistic intrusions and producing reconstructed reality. To break the boundaries of intentionality built in the medium and to have defaults of one medium replaced by the other. Mapping is already a part of architecture, and this is another try to make intrusions with scale, materials, and details, so it moves back and forth between art and architecture. There's an intersection of interests picked from Frank Stella and Yayoi Kusama, and you see the inspiration very soon in the work that I'm going to describe and how it intervenes with the work. So the context of the space is borrowed from Google Maps by means of photogrammetry. So we're going to talk about the medium Google Maps, which we are so used to using every day, but to explore more into what it is and how we can make the best use of it, or we can make the use of it according to our own needs. So in my case, it's for architecture, but it could also be something more than that. Google Maps have an intentionality built into them, and the project is about intervening with them with artistic intrusions, hacking them to produce different versions. Google Map uses aerial photogrammetry. We've spoken a lot about photogrammetry today, and it's a very good thing that we are all equipped with it, and now we can I can move forward with it. I don't have to explain the basics of it. So Google Maps also uses photogrammetry as one of its techniques to create the Google Maps in its 3D version. But by nature of the technique, it doesn't come without its glitches, which is my area of interest. So this is what we see, the 3D Google Maps on Google very often. We always use it to navigate around, but it's time to inspect into it a little bit. So aerial photogrammetry is using airplanes to capture a desired area in different angles. It then stitches the overlapping images of an object to create a resulting mesh. There is always a seeming loss of information, which results in these imperfections or glitches. So now we talk about hacking the medium that we've been talking about. So what I do in my project is I take two maps of Frankfurt, one from area around the Main Tower, which is the newer area, and one containing the skyscrapers, and one from the area around Dome Roma, which consists mostly of the older parts of Frankfurt. So as you can see there. So I use the same technique as we use in photogrammetry, as Google uses too, as one of its techniques to capture images of the object to be of interest from every direction, from top, from lower, and from way lower, as we've also been explained before. And so I do the same to create the object of my interest. I capture images of Google 3D maps. I recreate the 3D maps using photogrammetry software, and the result is an object from that. I end up producing a representation of the existing reality. Due to the nature of the medium, there is further loss of information to produce a new set of glitches that play with the silhouette of the skyline of the city. As you can compare, that is the produced object by Google's photogrammetric techniques and what they produce, and that is the recreation of what Google did by me, but using the similar technique. I repeat the process with the map around the area around Dom Romer as well. I place the reproductions of the two maps together in a way that skyscrapers populate the courtyard of Dom Romer with a different scale. So as I've explained before, it's about intervening with the medium. So you have to do as much as you can to break the intentionality of the medium. You have to play with the scale. That was my intention. You play with the scale, you play with the texture, you play with everything you can. So as an architect, I'm interested in cities and I'm interested in context. So I've played around with it, and then just as a part of research to see the outcome of photogrammetry, as you can see here. So the outcome of photogrammetry is a mesh and textural information produced by mesh, which is informed by UV textures. It's a technique that software has developed. They have a UV information and they have a map attached to it, which we've also touched upon before. So this is the resulting map of Dom Roma and the Main Tower. This is the resulting map of Main Tower. So we've seen the photogrammetric textural information before in the before slide as well, and this is the one from my effort. So how it relates to art, let's look at it. So looking closer onto the information that we received in the form of maps. So if you look at it, if you observe it, how this software produces it is it rotates the same object around on 2D map a bunch of times so that it wraps around the 3D object eventually. So if you see the church over there, the head of it, and then you see the face of the church again repeated on the same 2D map, and then you see another face of it repeated on the same map, and in the same way it does for all the objects probably, because it's impossible for a human eye to detect everything, but that's how the software makes sense of it, I suppose. You see the same thing in the map around the skyscrapers. You see the river, it has been rotated and multiplied multiple times on the map to actually make a 3D object out of it. So coming back to art, with the work of Frank Stella, I'm not sure how many people are acquainted to it, but in the world of Cubism and in the work of Frank Stella, they also put 3D representation on 2D plane. So that brings back to my reference to him. The idea behind the work is that the work was to create a 2D painting out of 3D objects. Hence, it works on a similar ground. So Cubism has always fought with this idea of 2D and 3D, and they try to depict a 3D object on a 2D plane. And this is another version of it, and it's his series of exotic birds, actually. So now we intervene with the medium. Another reference of mine actually is also from Yayoi Kusama, the Infinity Mirrored Rooms and Obliteration Room of hers. It's very famous work. she intervenes with the space of the gallery. So she intervenes on it to create another environment. She messes with the defaults of the medium of a museum space. So that's also kind of my context of going into the medium and then making changes to it. So Yayoi Kusama did the same thing with her work of infinity mirrors and obliteration rooms. Moving further along to the art inspirations, learning from this, I use similar idea to contaminate my medium with Yayoi Kusama's painting of Give Me Love. So we have 2D maps from the models that we created already. Now, what can we do with those maps and maybe another information that could be from art? Like, for example, this is also, so that is a texture and this is a texture. Could we maybe combine them and do something with the maps of the objects? So I use convolutional neural network process. It's a kind of artificial intelligence network process. What it does is, it is a deep neural network that uses neural representations to separate and recombine content and style of arbitrary images. It consists of layers of small computational units that process visual information hierarchically in a feed-forwarding manner. So the process goes as there's a target map and there's an image filter. And then there's a feature map that is a combination of both. So this also goes back to art a little bit if you think about it, because, okay, I'm just going to show the result for real quick. So this map is actually a combination of textural information from both maps. So this has Frankfurt and Yayoi Kusama both in it. And I do the same with a different sort of graphical aesthetic, but it is basically the same process. So this is the result of it. How this goes back to art is what I was saying is, so with collage, when we talk about it, it's about mixing objects from surface to surface, if we look at the history of collage. And this is also a kind of like a collage because it mixes information, convolutional neural networks, if you see here, it mixes information pixel by pixel. So it is kind of the same idea. This is another level created from the same idea. So what happens when they come together? Yayoi Kusama and Frank Stella. So further intrusions from them reflect properties of work from both the artists and the possible interaction between the two. This is an outcome of when I intrude the maps with textural infestation inspired by Yayoi Kusama and Frank Stella's work. This leads to an exchange of properties that create an outcome which was studied through the lens of textural manipulation and silhouette study as figure-ground relations. The same thing when I did with the other map of Domrumer. So the shape of the figures is preserved, but they appear to bleed into each other by virtue of textual manipulation, as you can see here. So this is the outcome, resulting map of this process. I've already touched upon this a little bit, but photogrammetry creates a dense point cloud information through a set of images of an object. Like it takes all the images and then it creates point cloud information from it that is resulted by the overlap. And then the collage of objects and collage of pixels. It's kind of the same idea. It works on the same road, but on a different ground, on different softwares. Exploring further. So what would happen if I take a very well-known building, like the European Central Bank, also create an object from it, and then I take the map of the, I take the map in the procedure of the creation of that object. I make the Yayoi Kusama's Give Me Love painting as the image filter, resulting in a feature map. So can we produce a new object using that, the outcome of the collage of these two images? So I repeat the same process. I take each and every image I use in the creation of the earlier object. I process the image to create another image, and then as an extension of my research, I would like to take these images and produce another project, kind object. So this is the object that I resulted with by that. So that's like in the middle of the city, and that's a comment on the contextualism, really. So that's my work, and thank you for listening. I know there'll be a lot of questions. I mean, it's completely understandable.
Yeah, are there any questions?
Yes. Hi. Sorry? Yeah, that's the thing. So I'm a bit slow. So I have taken my time after the thesis. I relaxed, and now I'm trying to get back into the work mode. So yes, they will be available very soon, to be honest. And I'm trying to get this as much as out as I can, maybe approach a few galleries and display the work, also sell prints online. But if you want to follow the work in general, you can follow my Instagram account. That's where I'm posting all the updates, because I think it's a very good medium for art, because, you know, Instagram is like all about pictures, right? So yeah, you can follow me. It's through my name, and I'll keep it updated with all of the things available with it. Thank you. Yes. Sorry? This one? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't catch that. Oh, no, I haven't really done any tutorials or anything yet. But yeah, that's a great idea. When I'm a bit less lazy in life, I think I should upload some videos. Yes, that's a good idea. Yes, please. Yeah, so I've tried a bunch of softwares while I was doing this. So Zephyr 3D and what was it? Agisoft, yes. So those were the best softwares I could think I could work with. I've tried a couple more, but they were not that good. Yeah, so I suggest these. Yeah, so I call it Real Frankfurt at the moment, because it's Frankfurt, and I like the city, and I've documented it. But later, I think if I move on to other cities, it'll be Real Cities. But at the moment, it's Real Frankfurt. That's what I call it, because is it real? Is it fake? I don't know. Because it comes out of the real objects, but real of something real. It's a bit, the idea is a bit like confusing to me. Yeah, the thing is actually, but this is also something that comes from architecture. Everything is linked with the process in architecture when we explain something. Like if you design a building, nothing can come out of thin air, even though it does a lot of times, I have to say. But it should not. So this is also like a part of process. I've followed steps that make an outcome, but I could just go out of the blue and create something as well. But yeah, I wouldn't call it like a magically created environment or anything, because it's nothing that I did to make it magical. It's the outcome of something, is as how I see it. But yes, people call it like Alice in Wonderland, magical, and yeah, that's the reference to it. But it comes with it. I wouldn't attach it to it. Yeah, I have this gaming laptop, and it's kept outside. You can look at its specifications and everything. I don't really remember, but I bought it 2 years ago. Okay, so but the processing, sometimes it takes 2 nights, sometimes it takes 1 night on my laptop. Yeah. Yes. Good question. I think I could maybe do the same thing with another city, or I could work on the same one. I mean, of course, one has to improve their technical abilities and artistic abilities to create something better all the time. But I think the next thing would be another city, I suppose. Berlin. Who knows? I don't know. Thank you. Oh, yes.